Together another example, and ACE, this will be titled 4.2 extra example 2, and you can see what I have up here. My profit function is x plus 2y plus z, so we got three variables, and then the constraints are 2x plus y plus 2z less than or equal to 14, 4x plus 2y plus 3z is less than or equal to 28, 2x plus 5y plus 5z is less than or equal to 30. And then, of course, you've got x greater than or equal to 0, y greater than or equal to 0, and z greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so let's start out by setting it up. So I've got 2, 1, 4, 2, 2, 5 coefficients. And then from the profit function, I forgot I had z, 2, 1, 1, 4, 2, 3, and 2, 5, 5. There's your coefficients. Then from the profit functions, I got 1, 2, and 1, so down here I take the opposite. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 1. Okay, it's 4 rows, so I'm going to have a 4 by 4 identity. And then my last numbers, I got a 14, 28, 30, and the last number is always a 0. Okay, now we're ready to begin. So I look on the bottom row, biggest negatives right here, negative 2. So that tells me the second column will be my pivot column. So now we come over here, I'm going to take 14 divided by 1 is 14. And then 28 divided by 2 is 14 again. And then looks like 30 divided by 5 is 6, and we don't look at the bottom number. Okay, so my numbers here, I want the smallest positive, so that's right here. So that tells me the third row. Would have been nice if it was the first row. I already had a 1 there, but it's not. So the third row is my pivot row. And where the pivot column and the pivot row intersect, that's going to become my pivot. So I got to get a 1 here. So the top row is going to stay the same. Second row is going to stay the same. In the third row, I have to take 1/5, row 3. So 1/5 of 2 is 2/5. 1/5 of 5 is 1. That's my pivot. 1/5 of 5 is 1. 1/5 of 0 is 0. 1/5 of 0 is 0. 1/5 of 1 is 1/5. 1/5 of 0 is 0. And 1/5 of 30 is 6. And the bottom row stays the same. Now that I have the 1, I want to get zeros. So to get a 0 here, I'm going to take negative row 3 plus row 1. Okay, so I got negative 2/5. Think of that as 10 over 5. 10 over 5 is the same thing as 2. So 10 and negative 2 is 8 over 5. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. 0 and 1 is 1. 0 and 0 is 0. Negative 1/5 and 0 is negative 1/5. 0 and 0 is 0. Negative 6 plus 14 is 8. Row 2, to get a 0 here, I have to multiply by negative 2 and add. So that's negative 2 times row 3 plus row 2. So negative 2 times 2/5 is negative 4/5. Think of that as 20 over 5. 20 and negative 4 be 16 over 5. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 3 is 1. 0 and 0 is 0. 0 and 1 is 1. Negative 2 times 1/5 is negative 2/5 plus 0 is negative 2/5. 0 and 0 is 0. And negative 2 times 6 would be negative 12. Negative 12 plus 28 is 16. Row 3 stays the same because that's where the pivot was. And then down here, to get rid of the negative 2, I'm going to multiply it by 2 and add. So that's 2 times row 3 plus row 4. So 2 times 2/5 is 4/5. 4/5 plus negative 1, think of that as negative 5 over 5. So 4 and negative 5, that's going to be negative 1 over 5. 2 times 1 is 2 plus negative 2 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2 plus negative 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 times 1/5 is 2/5. 2/5 plus 0 is 2/5. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. And 2 times 6 is 12 plus 0 is 12. Now something good just happened. I don't know if you noticed. When we started out, if you look at the negatives on the bottom, I had 3 negatives. I told you previously, if you have 3 negatives on the bottom, that means you're probably going to have 3 iterations. So we just finished one iteration where we got a 1 and the rest zeros. And if you look on the bottom, there's only 1 negative left. So we just cut out an iteration. Okay, so we started over again. Biggest negative, there's only 1, so that's this one. So this becomes my pivot column. Then we've got to go over to the right and calculate our ratios. So 8 divided by 8/5, that's the same thing as 8 times 5 over 8. But my ratios over here, this is going to be 5. 16 divided by 16 over 5 is 5 again. On this one, it's 6 divided by 2/5, or 6 times 5 halves. That's going to be 15. We don't do the bottom. So at this point, you look over here, you want the smallest positive. Well, it's a tie between those two. You could choose either one of them. I'm not going to ask you to find both answers. Now, sometimes I'll look across here and I'll say, which number might be easier to work with? Would you rather work with the 8 over 5 or 16 over 5? I'm going to vote for 8 over 5. So we're going to choose the top row to be our pivot row. Okay, so to get a 1 here, we're going to take 5/8 times row 1. So 5/8 times 8/5 is 1. That's going to be my new pivot. 5/8 times 0 is 0. 5/8 times 0 is 0. 5/8 times 1 is 5/8. 5/8 times 0 is 0. 5/8 times negative 1/5. The 5's drop out. That's going to be negative 1/8. 5/8 times 0 is 0. And 5/8 times 8 is going to be 5. One thing you're probably starting to develop appreciation is 0. It's always nice when you got zeros to multiply by. It makes everything a lot easier. Okay, now rows 2, 3, and 4 stays the same, so I'm just going to copy those. Okay, now we should be ready to get to the last step. Okay, so the top row is essentially done. I pivot row so I don't do anything to it. So I'm just copying those numbers down. It gets tedious copying the numbers, but it's better than the alternative. Okay, to get a 0 here, I'm going to take negative 16 over 5 times row 1, right off the page, plus row 2. So it's going to be negative 16 over 5, and 16 over 5 is 0. 0 and 0 is 0. 0 and 1. Now, 16 over 5 times this. The 5's drop out. The 8 on the bottom goes into 16 twice. This is going to be negative 2. That was nice. Now you got to take negative 16 over 5 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Negative 16 over 5 times negative 1/8. The negatives drop out. This 8 goes into 16 twice. This is going to be 2 over 5 plus negative 2 over 5. That ends up being 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. And then negative 16 over 5 times 5. The 5's cancel out. That's negative 16 plus that 16. It's going to be 0. Okay, now I want to get a 0 here, so we're going to multiply negative 2/5 times row 1 plus row 3. So negative 2/5 times 1 is negative 2/5 plus positive 2/5 is 0. 0 and 1 is 1. 0 and 1 is 1. Negative 2/5 times 5/8. The 5's drop out. That's going to be negative 2 over 8. And that's negative 1/4 plus 0 is negative 1/4. Negative 2/5 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. This one gets a little bit tougher. Here I'm going to take negative 2/5 times, just lost track, negative 1/8. When I get an answer there, I'm going to add that to 2/5. So let's see, 8. Let's just leave this. That's 2 over 40. If I wrote that as something over 40, so I got to multiply by 8, so that's 16. Put them together, that's 18 over 40. In lowest terms, that's 9 over 20. That's what we'll put right here. Okay, then I got negative 2/5 times 0, 0 plus 0, that's still 0. And negative 2/5 times 5, the 5's drop out, that's negative 2. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Okay, now we got the bottom row. So I got to get rid of the negative 1/5. So I got to take 1/5 row 1 plus row 4. So 1/5 times 1 is 1/5 plus negative 1/5 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1/5 times 5/8. The 5's drop out. That's 1/8. 1/8 plus 0 is 1/8. 1/5 times 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. 1/5 times this. Okay, back to my paper again. I'm going to take 1/5, 1/5 here, times negative 1/8, plus the 2/5 on the bottom. So this becomes negative 1 over 40, plus, and if I want that over 40, I'm multiplying by 8, that's 16. Negative 1 plus 16 is 15 over 40. 5 goes into each of those, so that'd be 3/8. And that's what I'm going to put right here. That's not right. Okay. Then you got 1/5 times 0, 0 plus 1 is still 1. And then 1/5 times the 5 here is 1. 1 plus 12 is 13. Okay, so we're finished. Here's the answer. Your maximum is equal to, it's always the lower right-hand corner, it's 13. At, I just write as an ordered pair. Your x value is going to be 5. And the y value is going to be 4. That takes care of example 2.